Euro-Atlantic aspect, Croatia and Albania have become full members at the summit last April, just close to a year ago. And we have Montenegro that has a membership action plan, and Bosnia that has submitted a request for a membership action plan. Serbia is a member of the Partnership for Peace program of NATO. And thus, as you see, we are at the stages of moving forward. The year ended also very significantly with a visa-free regime, to put it very simply, for the countries of Macedonia, Montenegro, and Serbia. Croatia already for a long time has had this regime. And Bosnia, with all hope, will by the summer achieve that regime, which leaves Albania, of course, and Kosovo. Now, this is indication of movement. And the movement basically is predicated upon what we in the region call in shorthand the Thessaloniki Promise. It is the summit that took place in June under the Greek presidency of 2003, when the leaders of the European Union then said, the Western Balkans, Southeastern Europe, this region will be part of Europe. And in the famous words of the then president of the Commission, Romano Prodi, in an interview, without ifs and buts. Of course, everyone having to fulfill their conditions for application. And thus, that road has been open. Finally, to reassert that commitment, the region was visited by Vice President Joseph Biden in May, where he said once again, reiterating the commitment of the United States to that same movement, to that same effort, working hand in hand with the European Union to see that Europe became whole and free and at peace. This is what, in the jargon of the diplomats and experts, is called the unfinished business in the Balkans or Southeastern Europe and in Europe. This is a part of core geographic Europe, if I can call it that, that is not yet inside the European Union. And we were visited most recently by the new High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Policy and Security Policy, Baroness Ashton, who came with a very strong message. This was her first visit outside of the European Union after her visit to the United States. Her message, if I can boil it down to one sentence, was the Balkan enlargement, the Western Balkans enlargement, remains a priority in the policy of foreign policy and security policy for the European Union. And of course, we will hear Commissioner Füle was also in the region recently, again reiterating that promise and that intention. So that's the moment that we're in, Balkans or Southeastern Europe 2010. And we are here really to see whether we are confident about that movement in democratic and economic reform within the countries that are the conditions we have to meet. Regional cooperation, which of course is one of the desires of ourselves. As I am from the region, I use the we. And also because it is one of the conditions that demonstrate espousing European values. And of course, the question is that the key gist of 2010, or are we confronted with fatigue? And we will also come back to that issue. So, finally, we had some of our media firepower taken away from Brussels Forum because we thought that the two presidents would meet here in Brussels for the first time. But they pulled a quick one on us, and they met 3 days ago, for those of you who don't know, in the beautiful coastal town of Opatija in Croatia. They had a nice ride on a boat on the sea, had a good Mediterranean lunch, and apparently what we hear had a 5-hour very intense talk about all and everything, demonstrating leadership of some of the two main countries towards the European and Euro-Atlantic movement. So my first questions will be to both presidents, and may I begin with you, President Tadic. How do you see 2010 in the region? Are we really moving forward, and is there the political will to do so?
I'm sure that we are going towards Europe, and the good news is that all Europe Southeast countries are having on the top of agenda.
The microphone.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It's working better.
Yeah.
Okay. We had some problems before this session and with equipment, but right now I hope. Okay, I'm going to
Good. Yeah. Hold your microphone.
to make pressure on microphone, not on you. Anyway, I'm sure that all Southeast European countries are on the path towards Europe and the European integrations. Some of them are very close to become member state of NATO, and I see this kind of development very helpful. At the same time, we have to fulfill our obligations. That means that we have to implement reforms. That is, from time to time, very painful, but that is taking some risks, but that is taking some time. I mean that Croatia is doing very well, and Croatia is very close to fulfill all obligations to become member state of European Union, and other countries are following Croatia in that respect. But we don't have any problem in terms of cooperation, in terms of fulfilling obligations and creating our region really very close in terms of values to Europe, and that is very, very important. We have some fields in which all particular countries has to achieve more. There are some reforms very important, judiciary sector, for example, fighting organized crime, fighting corruption, administration capacities, building infrastructure, healthcare. And we are doing everything that is possible in that respect. But what I want to mention on the end of my first sentence is that we are supporting each other. That is very important. We are not conditioning each other in terms of European integrations, and that is new spirit. And I would like to hear President of Croatia, and I'm totally sure that he's sharing views about that perspective. And last time when we talked to each other in Opatija in Croatia, we discussed all particular issues. There are some challenges even today. The Bosnia-Herzegovina, issue of Kosovo, defining frontiers and borders. But we have a goodwill, and we are cooperating to each other, and we would like to achieve a real solution for all those challenges.
Thank you. President Josipovic, as you know, in the region there are very many skeptics who are looking at what I call surface turbulences of our bilateral relations, and there was very, very much skepticism about when the two of you would actually meet. People like myself who are sort of born optimists knew that this would happen very quickly. Both of you spoke about the spirit of European partnership and, as President Tadic said, helping each other. Is that the spirit in which you approached also this meeting?
Yes, of course. So when we were preparing our meeting, we keep some secrecy. And
because of Europeans.
Yes, of course. I had lunch with I had lunch with European ambassadors to Croatia, and they said, "Oh, the meeting in Slovenia unfortunately failed." I said, "Okay, it failed, but we are going to meet very soon." And one of ambassadors said, "It's not possible. If you do it, you will have Nobel Prize, both of us." So I take it as some kind of permission. Yes. So yes, being before a professor of criminal law, I recognize that it's really shame that criminals are having better cooperation than states, and we have to change it. We have good examples of cooperation even before this meeting, especially in the field of judiciary. We are prosecuting together war criminals, then organized crime, and now there is no reason to make our cooperation wider. Both countries has strategic interest, common strategic interest, to be part of European family. That's global interest, but also we are going to, and we will like to share European values, all European values, and we would like to establish good cooperation not only between states, but between our citizens. It's much more important, and it's duty of this generation of politicians to resolve these problems we have. We have differences, we have problems, but we should not deliver it to another generation of politicians.
That's very reassuring and heartening, especially for us at the German Marshall Fund. As you know, we have a project called the Balkan Trust for Democracy, where exactly the intention is to help citizens actually become more active and meet across borders. Senator Voinovich, we have three people whose surnames end in ich: Tadic, Josipovic, Voinovich. So that speaks to your roots in the region. You have been a friend and a supporter and a critical, friendly voice about how we need to go forward. You have just visited all of the countries, and you have just published an op-ed piece with your colleague, Senator Jean Shaheen, called Unfinished Work in the Balkans. How do you see this year and the way forward, given the advances that you actually tout, saying that many successes have been made but not visible to everyone?
Well, first of all, this is a very happy moment for George Voinovich. With the president of Croatia and the president of Serbia. When I was mayor, I cared about the captive nations, and like so many of you in this room, never thought I'd see the wall come down or the curtain torn. And once it happened, my goal was to get as many people as I could into NATO, and it's so nice to see Mirso Joanna here, because when I came to the Senate, Mirso got the ambassadors from the 7 countries that wanted to get in. We called it the Big Bang, and we were successful at Prague in 2002. And I, of course, followed what was happening in the former Yugoslavia. I'm Serbian, but my people are from Croatia, and my mother is Slovenian. So, and
welcome home.
Yeah, and my vision is that to get the old Yugoslavia, Southeast Europe, into NATO and into the European Union. That's the vision, that would bring them into Europe, and that we wouldn't go back to what we've seen in so many years. And the significance here is, think about this. We had Milosevic, we had Zbigovic, and we had Tudjman. Okay? Think about that. And the progress that has been made there in terms of democracy and freedom and market economy has been just magnificent. And where I'm at right now is that there's still unfinished business there. And Senator Shaheen and I visited 5 countries, and our observations were that we need to continue to pay attention to what's happening there, and that we make it very clear to those countries there that are interested, particularly in getting in the European Union, that enlargement fatigue is there, and there's not going to be any more expansion. And one thing that people fail to realize, that Olli Rehn's work, okay, and it wasn't easy for him, Olli Rehn's work helped President Tadic get elected. Okay, he came and gave the people in Serbia the hope of becoming a member of the European Union, that he was going to take Serbia into the next generation and into Europe rather than going behind. So I think for all of you, this is very important, and we shouldn't miss this opportunity that's available to us. I know people are tired, but we must finish the work that needs to be done.
May I add to what you rightly said? It was, of course, Commissioner Olli Rehn, but more importantly, the 27 member states that stood behind Olli Rehn's recommendation to say we must make this next step forward. And I think that one of the tasks and challenges that we're all up against, if we are for the business to be finished, is that there are burning problems elsewhere in the world that demand attention every minute. And thus, if you are a region such as Southeastern Europe that is not burning or making a crisis, it is hard to keep the attention of the policymakers where it is important to actually continue the work of enlargement. And of course, that naturally brings us to the new commissioner, and may I congratulate you on your election, Stefan Füle. And I think for us, even though all your predecessors were extremely good at their business and understood the need, to have someone from a country such as the Czech Republic who has gone through the transition, who has gone through the accession to both the European Union and NATO, you know the difficulties, the day-to-day work on the acquis, the ups and downs, and the fears of Europe as you go in. So After your visit and with your background, how do you see this movement forward, and will we meet fatigue obstacles?
Enlargement fatigue is something we refer to, or at least some of us. And I hope very much that we'll be able to delete it from our vocabulary. Because it does not correspond with what I have seen in the region and the kind of aspirations the leaders of the EU have. I think we don't need any political engineering. We need political stewardship. We need equality of the process. The fact that the two presidents today have committed to help each other in implementing the European aspirations is very important, because a follow-up to what I have seen personally in Brdo, it is a new element. The enlargement process, and you were right at the beginning, that it turned to be rather very technical. It has been turned into benchmarks, into a very technical process which was sort of not in the center of our attention. You leaders of the regions and your cooperation is sort of taking that back to the main focus. It is actually one of the ways how to make Europe not inward-looking but outward-looking through the successful enlargement in Western Balkans. The member states have made it absolutely clear. The whole region, all member states, they have a European perspective. And the Commission is working very hard helping the countries to achieve that.
Thank you very much. I will resist the temptation to go for a second round of questions. I will turn to the audience immediately because time is running out, and I see Misha Glenny, author of A History of the Balkans, to maybe ask the first question.
I think I'd just at this moment like us to think about the significance of this event here. In the 1990s in the former Yugoslavia, we had roughly 200,000 people killed. We had millions upon millions of people displaced from their homes. We had the most terrible massacres. We had states emerging, collapsing. We had UN sanctions. We had a blockade on Macedonia. This was a terribly, terribly traumatic event for the region, and of course we had NATO's first war. The last war in the former Yugoslavia was the mini-war in Macedonia, which didn't quite make it. It's almost as though they didn't have the full commitment to go to war, which is a good thing. 10 years later, look at what we've achieved. There has been no peace process as successful as what we have seen in the former Yugoslavia, given the depth of the trauma of the 1990s. And so the significance of having both these two presidents here in front of us is really immense. And it's also immense because if Serbia and Croatia are cooperating, if they are respecting each other and deepening their relations, then it is very hard for anywhere in that region to collapse into war again. And so that's why I think we really ought to welcome this moment as being really of historic significance. Having said that, during that trauma, one of the things that happened was that there was a very severe penetration of the political process in all the countries of the former Yugoslavia, and it is unwise to identify individual countries because it happened absolutely everywhere, of organized crime into political parties, into the institutions of state. This has been hugely damaging, and all of the countries still suffer from these the influence of these people and the economic influence of these people. Can I ask the presidents and also everyone on the panel, if they have ideas, what are the concrete steps, the operational steps, if you like, that can be undertaken to start to diminish the influence of these people who, as we know, are still causing havoc in the country's social and political life?
Okay, I will go back to the panel with this question because I also believe it's extremely important and because I think we also see very positive developments there. So whichever you want to start. President Josipovic.
Okay. Yes, we are aware of dangers of organized crime influencing our political life, our economical life. But we have done some steps, very important steps. Firstly, we have to recognize in our countries dangers that is above us from those people. Secondly, we have to recognize that organized crime has no citizenship. It's spread all over Europe and all over the region. And our countries already did some important steps. I'll encourage everyone to think about those steps because they are very important for all countries, including special agreement between public prosecutors' offices. Then we have special agreement with Bosnia and Herzegovina, I hope with Serbia tomorrow as well, about extradition and execution of criminal sanctions from the other countries. Then there is extensive cooperation of our police. We have several important cases resolved by common activities of police in Serbia and Croatia. One is still now pending before the Croatian court, but it's good result of Serbian police and Croatian police as well. So I think we are on the very beginning of the process, but it's very optimistic beginning. And I hope that tomorrow no one will take advantage of border performing criminal activities in one country and hiding in the other country.
The flippant remark, as President Josipovic already said at our conferences on the Balkans, was that there is fantastic regional cooperation among our criminals. I think the tide is turning now, that actually our states and our governments and our security forces are actually now being better at regional cooperation. But President Tadic, please.
Well, that is one of the most challenging situation we are facing with. And I have to say that we are working very hard on that issue, both of us and our countries. And that is becoming not only our regional problem, but also a European problem. In that sense, we can be very helpful. I mean, end users for narcotics and for those kind of criminal activities are not in our regional countries, but in the European Union. And that is how we are contributing to the stability of Europe. In that respect, Serbia's intelligence is working very hard with intelligences from Great Britain and the United States, SOCA and DIA. And last year we achieved so many results and the world record in capturing tons and tons of cocaine in the Atlantic Ocean. That is something very important for our stability and our security. But at the same time, I'm very proud. It is the first time after many, many years that we are exporting security. We've been importers of security for decades. This is the first time that we are exporting security and that we are cooperating successfully with our partners from Europe and United States. And we are going to continue those kind of actions. But what is my approach to that issue, and all analyses and investigations are showing clearly that organized crime is connected with the war criminals in the past. And you cannot have a break and the sea break between war criminals from the 1990s and organized criminals today. And you can see flowing of resources and money from that period until today. And I'm underlining once again that kind of actions are crucially important for stability in the region. That is how we are contributing to the stability of European Union countries and European budgetary policy. At the same time, we are providing real security for generations, the generations in our country. I hope, and I'm sure, I'm very optimistic that we are going to cooperate to each other on that issue hardly and successfully in the future. And I would like to mention extremely good cooperation between our intelligences, Croatian and Serbian intelligence in that respect.
Senator Voinovich, I guess you're aware of this cooperation between the U.S. agencies who are fighting organized crime like the DEA. Is this a known issue in the U.S. administration, how the region now is actually coming together?
Yes, it is, and the FBI and the DEA and the other agencies are working with Serbia and with Croatia. And I think that one of our concerns is that it has to be made a priority in the European Union to cooperate, because so often the tentacles reach out into other areas. And I think it's incumbent on all of the countries to cooperate. This is, if you don't solve the corruption problem, it's going to be very difficult to get to a better economy and a better quality of life for people.
Stefan Füle, is this a serious priority on the agenda of what we need to do in these countries?
Very much so. It reflects one of the key components of Copenhagen's criteria. And it has been said already here that the organized crime could be tackled only if you have efficient prosecution office, if you have efficient judiciary, if you have effective police institutions in place. The Commission, particularly during the accession talks, have instruments how to help and monitor the progress in the candidate countries. Particularly in this area, what's important for the Commission is that the countries, the candidate countries, show not only the homework done as far as ticking the boxes, but that it's working, that there is a track record of these institutions and the legislation is working.
Thank you very much. May I now recognize and welcome the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Montenegro, Milan Ročen, to say a few words and ask a question maybe. Samo pričate.
Halo. Hvala vam. Ivo, hvala. Ja nažalost ne govorim engleski, ja toliko dugo pamtim da sam zaboravio da naučim engleski. Pomoći će mi moj mladi ambasador, šef misije pri Europskoj uniji, koji govori 7-8 jezika, što znači da Crna Gora ne treba da brine za svoju europsku budućnost.
Unfortunately, I do not speak English, so my colleague, my ambassador to the EU will help me, and because he speaks several languages and he is the future of the European integration of my country.
That is great, 2 generations.
Ja govorim ruski, nisam siguran da svi ovdje govore ruski ili još ne.
I speak Russian, but I'm not sure whether everybody here speaks Russian, or at least everybody here still does not speak Russian.
Jedan moj američki prijatelj koji je ovdje rekao mi je, kako ne znaš engleski, pa mi smo ga Amerikanci svi naučili, naučite ga.
One of my American friends told me here, like, how come you do not speak Russian? We already learned English. We already learned it.
Zaista dugo pamtim i ne pamtim boljeg panela. Želim da izrazim zadovoljstvo, zahvalnost da izrazim organizatorima foruma što imaju poseban panel posvećen Zapadnom Balkanu. Posebno ne pamtim takav nivo. Dva ključna lidera, ključnih zemalja regiona, velikih zemalja, ne samo za naš region, nego i u širim okvirima. Ključni čovjek Europske unije, novi komesar za proširenje Füle i istaknuti senator Voinovich, veliki prijatelj svih naših naroda i zemalja.
I have a long memory, but I still do not recall such a good panel to be organized around here, and especially because of the high level of attendance of the 2 presidents of the 2 most important countries of the region, and especially having the Commissioner Füle present here and Senator Voinovich, who is our great friend from America.
Mnogi su izrazili zadovoljstvo i ja ću izraziti zadovoljstvo i povući jednu paralelu. Dugo, nažalost, pamtim vrijeme uoči raspada one velike Jugoslavije.
Many of the people here have expressed their satisfaction, and I have a long memory. I especially have a long memory when it comes to the dissolution, of the time of the dissolution of ex-Yugoslavia.
Dakle, još prije Miloševića i Tuđmana bio sam na jednom zatvorenom sastanku kada je jedan visoki hrvatski političar rekao jednom visokom srpskom političaru: sudbina ove zemlje zavisit će od toga kako se mi i vi dogovorimo. Kako su se dogovorili znamo.
I have a really long memory, as I said, and I remember even before the time of Milosevic and Tudjman, there was a meeting, a closed-door meeting of the ex-Yugoslav leaders, and one Croat leader said to the Serbian leader, the way we make an agreement here will decide the fate of the country. And you know what the fate of the country was after that.
A pogledajte danas, Hrvatska I Srbija, dvije ključne zemlje, imaju moderne europske lidere, europske provenijencije. Srbija je na pragu Europske unije, Hrvatska je na pragu Europske unije, Srbija je blizu.
And just look at the situation today. We have two modern leaders coming from the two main countries. Serbia is Croatia is at the threshold of joining the EU.
Srbija je napravila gigantske iskorake pod vojstvom predsjednika Tadića.
And Serbia has made a huge thrust forward with the presidency of President Tadić.
A nama, najbližim susjedima I malim zemljama kao što je Crna Gora, ostaje zaista da se radujemo tom uspjehu, jer od dobra naših susjeda nama samo može biti bolje.
And we, the small countries of the region, their neighbors, are really looking forward to their success because it only helps us on our way.
Crna Gora je, znate, kao ono neželjeno dijete u porodici. Niko joj se nije obradovao, čak ni mnogi u Crnoj Gori.
And Montenegro, as you know, is like that unwanted child in a family. Nobody really was happy when it came.
Ali ponekad se desi kao u životu da baš to dijete napravi dobre iskorake u životu.
But sometimes, like it happens in the life, this unwanted child really makes a huge success.
Za kratko vrijeme napravili smo progres I na europskom, na euroatlantskom putu.
In a short time, we have made the good progress in our European and Euro-Atlantic path.
Mi smo svjesni da smo mala zemlja.
We are conscious of the fact that we are a small country.
Da nam niko neće praviti političke ustupke.
And nobody is going to take us for granted.
Da moramo da završimo sve domaće zadatke, ispunimo sve standarde.
That we have to deliver and to finish all of our tasks.
I svjesni smo da se vrata Europske unije I NATO-a za nas ne otvaraju u Briselu, nego u Podgorici I u našim regionalnim prijestolnicama.
And more than anything, we are aware of the fact that the door of the European Union and NATO are not open in Brussels, but in Podgorica and in our region.
Kod nas se kaže u narodu, Bog je rekao, pomozi sam sebi pa ću ti I ja pomoći.
And our people has a saying that God said, you should help yourself and then I'll help you.
Tako mi sada svi jedni drugima pomažemo u regionu da bi nam Europska unija, da bi nam NATO pomogli da idemo što brže putem
So that's what's happening in the region. We are helping each other in order to have the European Union and NATO help us to go faster. And thank you very much.
I want to... I think we'd be remiss also to not recognize the fact that Croatia and Slovenia have come to a conclusion in regard to the Bay of Piran. You know, the Slovenes wanted this taken care of before they would allow Croatia to come into the European Union. And this was a controversial issue, and they brought it to arbitration, and they're working it out. The Slovene court has ruled that the arbitration is fine, and so on. But the thing that I'm really impressed with is that each country is interested in their own situation, but they all recognize that what happens to the region, as you point out, has an impact on them. And so they're looking at this whole area as a region rather than just I'm worried about myself, and I think that we ought to realize that there's still challenges there. We have Kosovo, we have Bosnia-Herzegovina that we've tried to bring together in terms of their constitution and flexibility. We have the problem in Macedonia with FIROM or Macedonia to work that out. So there are some real challenges that are still here, but the progress is being made, and again, the fact that they're looking out for the other person, that President Tadić knows that if things are going all well in Croatia and President Sipovic knows that things are going good in Serbia, that they're working as a team, that they're united, that working together they're going to all be better off than if they go off and do their own things is something very, very significant.
I think, if I may, what you're seeing here is the awareness and realization that if we work together, in spite of our outstanding challenges and issues between us, we will move forward more quickly. As the opposite and converse is true, if, for example, when Slovenia and Croatia were having an open issue that blocked everything, it was a bad repercussion on all of the rest of us. As soon as that was unblocked, there was suddenly a positive move, i.e. we do function in this region as communicating vessels. The positive reflects on everyone, the negative likewise. I will now take 3 questions to move on quickly, and I'll start with Heather Graby from the Open Society Institute. And could we have a microphone down here, please? The second microphone will be for Sonja Licht right here.
Thank you. In fact, I wanted to ask a question exactly on the point that Senator Voinovich raised, which is the potential for bilateral disputes in the region still to cause major problems in the EU accession process and indeed to the progress of all of the countries. This is something that's a structural weakness in the accession process, that because there are so many veto points, because unanimity is required at every single stage of the process for opening chapters, closing chapters and so on, any member state can block progress. Now, fortunately, the Croatia-Slovenia dispute has come to a conclusion. There are many unresolved issues in the region. There are still open court cases. I mean, there's the International Court of Justice case about Kosovo, for example. Hopefully that will be finished certainly by the time that Serbia becomes a candidate. But still, there's plenty of stuff there for politicians who are perhaps less enlightened than the ones we have before us to take advantage of and to make big populist causes out of. And the own merits principle of countries joining when they're ready also suggests that the region is not going to join together. In fact, there could be some big gaps between countries joining. So there's this potential for a sort of chain reaction of, well, we were bullied when we were outside the Union and now we're going to turn the same on our neighbours. You know, there are populists in the region who could easily take advantage of that. So how do we deal with this? Should there be some kind of regional commitment by all of the countries in, say, some binding way? I can imagine it under the aegis of Commissioner Füle, for example, to say we will not use this weapon after joining. And is there any way the EU could hold them to that?
That is exactly what we are.
All of the questions, please. I need to take all of the questions before.
This is such a good question.
I'm intending to.
You want to jump out?
Fast answers.
Sonja Licht of the Belgrade Fund for Political Excellence, an NGO from Serbia.
Thank you. I will skip the congratulatory part to the German Marshall Fund, but I still must say that I think there is a very important symbolic thing here, that under the auspices of such a transatlantic organization, the 2 presidents are with us. There are many people in the Balkans who believe that the cooperation between Croatia and Serbia is so important for the region as it was the cooperation between France and Germany. As we know, and that in fact the future also economically of the region depends on this cooperation. As we know, coal and steel were the basis where Germany and France met. And there was some talk about it during the forum. I would like you to look into the future. What do you think will be the coal and steel of Serbian-Croatian cooperation for the 21st century? Thank you.
John Kornblum, former U.S. Ambassador.
I'm John Kornblum. I was the deputy American head at the Dayton delegation and then special envoy for the Balkans for 2.5 years afterwards. And it is now 15 years since Dayton was signed, and we're still basically using the same constitutional order in Bosnia-Herzegovina. We thought it would last maybe 3 years or 5 years maybe. This is a historic occasion, I agree. Vice President Biden was also in Bosnia, demonstrating renewed American interest, which had fallen away, I'm sorry to say, for a while. Can't we now perhaps have real commonality? You both have important communities in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And Croatians in Bosnia can vote in Croatian elections, for example, which I'm not sure is the correct thing to do. Maybe the coal and steel of this operation could be a joint EU, United States, and Croatian and Serbian effort to finally move the situation in Bosnia-Herzegovina forward, because it is not good, it's not stable. It would be nice also if we could get Macedonia into both, and I say Macedonia, not Fyrom, into the EU and to NATO. If we could achieve those 2 things, that would be really a great celebration for this occasion. Thank you.
Okay, because I stopped you, you're the first to speak. President Tadic.
First of all, I totally agree with you that this is one of the real preconditions in terms of integration of the Western Balkans among the European family of the nations. We are ready to say we are not going to condition other countries in terms of integrations. And that is exactly what we've been talking to each other a few days ago. And answer on the second question about Bosnia and Herzegovina. I remember the first time when President Milosevic and Tudjman had a meeting in Karađorđevo residence near to the frontiers between
1991.
In 1991. They've been talking about division of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Last time when we met each other in Opatija, we concluded that we have to do everything that is possible to protect integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And this is not a changeable policy. We are supporting integrity and sovereignty of our neighboring states, Bosnia and Herzegovina. And that is totally different policy and totally different approach. And that is how we are delivering stability, not only in the region, but also on the European soil. That's very important from my point of view.
Okay, if I may add, during my campaign, was a few months ago, I promised there will be no preconditions, and bilateral questions are not going to be mixed with European questions. So definitely Croatia will not misuse position of European country towards those neighbors who will not be in Europe in this moment. I have to stress that in the past, keyword for many states and many politicians was leadership. Who is going to be leader? Very important for me. I have to take my historical role. No, I think today, situation in Western Balkans needs to make affirmation to the other keyword. It's partnership. And partnership is keyword for future. It's keyword not only for our European future, but for security and stability in this part of the world. And concerning this question about coal and steel, I think that our real coal and steel will be not something from the area of trade and commercial, but people. It's very important. We have specific situation because our people shared history. We have families connected from both sides from both countries, for all 3 or 4 countries. I have more neighbors in Montenegro than in Croatia. More cousins in Montenegro than in Croatia. For historical reasons, I'm poor Croat, but I have neighbors in Montenegro.
Are you sure?
Yes. I'm not sure for friends, but cousins for sure. So that will be our coal and steel, and it's very important because it's much more powerful than coal and steel.
As some of you know, President Tadic was born in Sarajevo, but
yes.
we'll skip
but
that.
Originally from Montenegro.
Originally from Montenegro.
we are exporting security. Montenegro is exporting leaders. All Serbian leaders are from Montenegro. And
ambassadors as well.
And you never know in Montenegro. This is why I'm asking President Josipovic.
Commissioner Füle.
Yeah, thank you. The first question was really an important one for the sake of the whole region. And I think that a new higher level of regional cooperation is one of the answers. I think we need to use this commitment expressed also today here from the leaders to make one additional step and to find a mechanism how to detect these mines and how to diffuse them in parallel to the accession process. Because if we allow the accession process, to deal with the bilateral issues, then I'm afraid we will make a bad service to the enlargement process. And I feel that, to be understood more and more in the region. I'm very thankful to the leaders, to talk about the regional cooperation, about helping each other, because this is a way how to address it, in addition to clear political declarations.
I think this is exactly what we wanted to do with this panel, to really show the moment in time in 2010 and the atmospherics between the leaders and the leadership that they're doing. I will now go to the next round of 3 people, and our colleague from Russia here. Microphones, please.
Yeah, I'm Konstantin Eggert from Moscow. I just wanted to follow up on what John Kornblum said. It's very nice to hear about the progress that the region is making, but looking from, well, outside the region, there are quite a few unresolved major issues there. One is Bosnia-Herzegovina. If you speak to, I have a lot of friends who work for NGOs there, and most of them say that it could remain frozen like that for decades to come. So what to do about that? What do 2 presidents think about the danger of Islamist radicals penetrating the region? There are quite enough of them already. And thirdly, third issue, I mean, European integration of the constituent states of the Western Balkans might not be looked on kindly, let's put it mildly, in a very BBC manner, by some elements in the Russian government that thought that pipelines and a lot of other things are already in their pockets. So how the esteemed panel will comment on that?
Okay, hold your horses. We have Goran Svilanovic, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Serbia and Montenegro.
I'd like to be brief because I have high expectations from what we are going to hear from the presidents. Already I would like to underline the statement I've heard from the President Tadic. This is exactly what we've been looking for years, a clear message in support of the integrity of Bosnia. To follow up on the question we have heard, I would say the time has come to change the policy, not to engage only with the compatriots, Serbs and Croats. It is a time to offer a helping hand to the Bosniak in Bosnia, and I think the 2 of you can do what has not been done for years. And the question that goes to Stefan Füle, and I hope that you will join, this is, I do have a fear in spite of the efforts of these good people, and this is that the development in some of the very important, very relevant EU member states, including a possibility of referenda after Croatia joined, might lead us into a break up in the Balkans. That is a reason for fear. I would like to appeal to the presidents, both of them, as well as to the other leaders in the EU, including, of course, Commissioner, to engage in communicating with Paris, with others, to send a strong message. We don't want to see a breakup. That would be tremendous for all of us living in the region, and I hope that the helping voice will come also from the States. Thank you.
Thank you, Goran. And final question this round.
Thanks. Alexander Vershbow from the Department of Defense in Washington. I raised my hand, I think, for the same reason as John Kornblum and Konstantin Eggert. I certainly share the great joy in seeing the presidents of Serbia and Croatia here and all the progress that they're making. But John is a former diplomat, but he was very diplomatic. I'll be less diplomatic today. And I think that the situation in Bosnia is not just frozen. I think there's a danger that all that was accomplished over the last 15 years is now at tremendous risk of literally falling apart. The state is barely functional. The international leverage that came from an international military presence has declined. And despite active engagement by my government, by the European Union, under previous presidency and the current presidency, we fear that there's a risk of a serious breakdown. And so it's very good to hear that Serbia and Croatia today want to support the integrity of Bosnia. But I'd be interested in whether the 2 presidents can here today say they may take a more active approach. I think much more active involvement in the process is necessary to reverse what are increasingly visible separatist tendencies, especially among the Bosnian Serbs, but to a large extent among the Croats. The spirit of cooperation among the Bosniaks isn't all that great either. So what more can the states of the region do? Because I think regional problems ultimately need regional solutions. And I think as Serbia and Croatia make tremendous progress, they have an increased responsibility to help save Bosnia from a downward spiral that is all too real a possibility.
Okay, thank you. Presidents.
Yes, of course, Croatia, I'm very sure Serbia as well, we are aware of dangers of terrorism, of dissolution of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and all these political events. But now I think that message delivered by President Tadic in Opatija and previous messages from my side clearly shows that Croatia and Serbia are willing to help. No aspiration to include part of Bosnia and Herzegovina into Serbia or into Croatia, or to support some forces that would like to split from Bosnia and Herzegovina. We need some time. I already started some discussions with people from Bosnia and Herzegovina to support the process of making new order in Bosnia, because it's very important to fulfill two tasks. One is to make Bosnia and Herzegovina as a functioning state, because today it's not. Sorry if there are someone from Bosnia and Herzegovina, but I think it's obvious. And secondly, Bosniaks, Serbs and Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because it's primarily their tasks. No one can import a solution from Bosnia and Herzegovina. We can just help, but we cannot create new state there. So everyone must also have in mind that this country must be a society of three equal nations. So two requirements: functioning states and equality of three nations, and of course equality of every individual in the whole country. Yes, it's very general premises, but I think it's clear that we have to develop this idea and to help Bosniaks, Serbs and Croats from Bosnia and Herzegovina to find proper constitutional solution.
If you want me to comment those questions, and I mean the general attitude that we are supporting integrity is a really some precondition in terms of stability. That means that we are not supporting any action in terms of division or partition of Bosnia and Herzegovina. But at the same time, we would like to be active in terms of solving problems and situation that is existing in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But we cannot impose solution, and no one can impose solution. That is very important. I totally agree with President Josipovic when he's mentioning three equal nations. But that is the framework in which we have to find a solution. Today there is a Dayton's Agreement, which means that two entities and three nations, three representatives of the nations, has a right to find a solution. We are ready to support, but we cannot impose. We cannot define what is solution for Bosnia and Herzegovina. And always when international community is trying to support, I have a concern that someone is trying to impose solution. We have to avoid that kind of scenario. But be sure, Croatia and Serbia are not going to destabilize Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is a crystal clear. I've been saying that in Banja Luka on the anniversary of Republika Srpska. Also, you have to know that Serbia is doing everything that is possible in terms of reconciliation between Serbs and Bosniaks. In the next few days, we are going to adopt a resolution about Srebrenica war crime in our parliament. That is going to be next week. I've been paying respect on the 10th years of anniversary of that war crime in Srebrenica. We are doing really everything that is possible. But at the same time, there are some problems, open issues that has to be solved. We have also some open issues, but we are ready to solve these issues, step by step. And we define how to do that. We have our representatives that are working on that issues. That is very, very important. In terms of Islamic radicalism, I have to say that we are carefully watching and monitoring what's going on. But there is not only Islamic radicalism. There is radicalism in other religious communities also. And we have to care about that, to be totally honest with you. And from that reason, we have to understand that only supporting each other is a way towards Europe, is a way towards solving problems and avoiding this destabilization. That is, from my point of view, important.
We, like Bosnia, need time, but we're running out of time here, and I have to apologize for all those who have raised their hand to ask questions, and I will go straight to the concluding statements of our panelists. May I introduce this brief conclusion? You will have about a minute each to say that in the region we are 20 million. We aspire to join a family that has 500 million people called the European Union. Will 2010, in your regard, be a year where we make significant steps and open towards resolving our challenges, or do you feel that we might get into a threat of stagnation? I'll start with you, Senator Voinovich.
Well, I think that, first of all, in terms of Bosnia-Herzegovina, the European Union has got to make up its mind whether or not they're going to give them visa waiver. NATO has to decide whether they're going to give a map before the election. It's been offered to Crna Gora, and they would like to have it. There are many people that are reluctant to do it, but there is a number of people there of goodwill. They're frustrated with the leadership. They're probably going to get reelected. I think no progress will be made between that time, but we should reach out and let the people know that we're concerned about it, that they're important to us. That's important. I think the other issue is can we work out the issue of the name in terms of Montenegro with the Greek community in Kosovo. That's FIRAM or whatever. You know, the point is to work it out the best that you can. But I will say this to you. I think that these two gentlemen and some of the others in the region ought to get together and figure out how they can make a difference in Bosnia-Herzegovina, possibly look at also the Kosovo situation. And right now it's the United States, the EU, Sandy's talking about, you know, coming in there. I think that we'd be much more successful if the solution to how things work out would come from the people in the region rather than have somebody come in and say, this is what you're going to have to do.
Thank you. Commissioner Füle.
I think the year 2010 will be critical for the region. Will be critical in a sense that we need to have the four elements of our policy working together. And if not, we will fail, we will miss historical opportunity. The first one is quality of our accession process, quality before speed. Second, regional cooperation, we were talking about that. Third is a political steering. I also mentioned that at the beginning. And the fourth, and this is extremely important, European Union after Lisbon has a unique opportunity to show, particularly in the region of Western Balkans, how this new EU external policy is working. We have Baroness Ashton in charge of the foreign policy. She is actually double-headed. So she is bringing to the region instruments of the common foreign and security policy together with the community instrument. And that's an opportunity we better use in this region.
President Josipovic.
As always, I'm very optimistic. That means that I believe that Croatia is going to finish negotiations. That is a Croatian affair. But from the other side, I'm very optimistic towards future cooperation in region, especially about partnership between Croatia and Serbia and our common efforts to Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. I'm very optimistic, and I hope that probably 2010 will be the last conference in which I will be participating, discussing Croatia and the region as a problem. I would like to attend in 2011 another conference about great success of international community, about success of our region and all states in the region.
President Tadic, final thought.
That is also my comments on the Sonia Lit question. And I mean that 2010 is going to be very important. First of all, because of enlargement fatigue that is existing in the European Union circles. I'm not saying countries. Second, we have, the question is what we can do to be closer to Europe, not what Europe can do for us. And I'm sure that we have to implement reforms in judiciary sector, in fighting organized crime, corruption, building infrastructure, administration capacity building. That is very important. We are facing with a financial crisis like all other countries, and we have to resolve some economic problems as soon as possible. The situation in Croatia, in Serbia, and all other countries is very fragile in that sense, like in all other European countries. We need some kind of understanding and support. Situation is not critical, but situation is very difficult. And in that respect, we have to continue our integrational processes. I hope that Serbia is going to be candidate until the end of this year, candidate country for European Union membership. That means that Serbia has to fulfill some obligations. This is capturing Ratko Mladic and Goran Hadžić. And we are doing everything that is possible to finish that obligation. But at the same time, we have to fulfill all other obligations to create concrete reforms. From my point of view, it's very important that we are supporting each other. We are not blocking each other. We are not conditioning each other. That is something totally new. We are talking about partnership between Croatia and Serbia. This is European partnership. Last time on the press conference after our meeting, we've been saying this is European partnership between Croatia and Serbia. That means that we want to become member states. If Croatia is going to become member state of European Union in 2011, 2012, that is going to be success not only for Croatia but also for Serbia. That is how I see further development. I hope that all other countries are going to support Serbia in that respect. And that is new spirit, European spirit. I am not saying that we don't have open issues. I am not saying that we don't have problems. Kosovo is one of them. We are not recognizing Kosovo, but we are trying to find a solution, compromise solution, that can be contribution to the regional stability. And I'm sure that we can achieve compromise solution. In all other respects, issue between Fyrom or Macedonia, we are saying Macedonia, our Greek friends are saying Fyrom, and Greece is also very important. Issue between Slovenia and Croatia. And that is how we can resolve some particular issues and how we can support each other. We are expecting that Europe is going to support us.
Thank you, President Tadic. I've heard two words here, leadership and partnership, both in the sense of supporting each other on the road to Europe, but we need in the region to do the work. I may think or hope that we have bought a ticket for a plenary at the next Brussels Forum, but that is not for me to judge, maybe for the others. So join me in thanking the two presidents and the panelists.
And thank you, Ivan. Thank you all. That was terrific.